So I got asked to translate the Japanese Vocaloid song Mini Hen, because apparently explaining extremely difficult Vocaloid songs is the hell that I have created for myself. But it's actually a really interesting song, and it's a fun song, so let's do it. Now, this person specifically asked me to translate it, but I'm not going to do that because while I hate the word untranslatable, this is pretty untranslatable, at least in the sense of like providing an equivalent English sentence for everything. But what I can do is explain what's going on in the song in terms of the language play and posit a potential understanding of what the song is kind of about. So, if you haven't heard it, Mini Hen, which I'll link in the description, is a song by the experimental Vocaloid producer Sasuke Haraguchi, which you should check out. It's quite fun. It was released on Valentine's Day of 2024, and it's a, funky, glitchy techno song focusing on interesting uses of kanji. And this kanji thing is important right from the start because let's just start by explaining the name Mini Hen, because we have, of course, mini, but also hen has a lot of potential meanings here. Now, the actual way that this is represented with mini in katakana and then hen there, that hen is the kanji for a radical, specifically one kind of on the left side, which often, not as a rule, but often have hen in the name. For instance, when you use the kanji tsuchi, as in like these characters, that's called tsuchi hen. Or when you use the hand radical, which gets morphed a bit, you can see it in these characters, that's called the tehen. And so mini hen, I guess, literally means a miniature, radical, but there's wordplay right from the get-go because there are other kanji which are read as hen with different meanings, one of which is this one here, which can mean strange or change. So the title of the song could also be a little bit odd or a little bit changed, a little bit different. And indeed, this wordplay comes up in the music video, so it's pretty intentional. And I think that all three of these interpretations are important, as we shall see. So let's just move on right now into going through the actual wordplay in the song, which I should note is pretty multimodal, as while the song is pretty hard to understand anyway. If there was not a music video for this, I don't think anyone would have any idea what's going on. Because as we see from the first line here, kaku hakaru machi, we not only have a repeat of some radicals, right? Kaku, or every, uses two shapes, which we see on the right hand of the way that the verb hakaru is represented, and then the left hand of the radical for hakaru is rice field, which we also see at the start of machi, which is like a town. Translating something is like every plodding town. But we would never know this if it wasn't written for us like this, because that is not the normal way you represent the verb hakaru. There are a ton of different kanji you can use for hakaru. Indeed, I've talked about it in my video on what different kanji mean for the same verb. But this variant is super obscure to the fact that like your computer probably won't even produce it. Indeed, when you Google if you can write the verb hakaru in this kanji, Google's AI, billion-dollar operation by the way, will tell you that it's not possible. You can't do it. You can. There are documents of it, and you would think that Google could like search its own stuff, but I guess it can't. But I do want to flag it because this is how obscure it is. It's so obscure that the thing that scrapes the internet to provide answers is unable to find this answer through initial scrapes of the internet. But people are allowed to use obscure kanji, and that's what they're doing to kind of create this link between these radicals across the various words. And this is why the song is hard to translate, because while again, there is like a way to translate this, the meaning that is going on here, the actual like literal meaning of the words, is definitely taking a back seat to playing with these shapes. And that play continues into the next line, which is tambo ta, or the ta in the word tambo. But this is, of course, again, visually the kanji ta in the word tambo, rice field, which is the one that we saw in the word machi as well. So that throw line is coming between the characters. There's also then kind of a throw line and linking to food, as the next part of the song is tada meshi meshi, or free food food, potentially even free cooked rice, right? As meshi can be food or rice, and we just talked about a rice field, so there's that kind of play. And while tada is normally written in katakana, there is a kanji for it, but in the video it's actually written using the ta from the rice field connecting that link. And this is not correct, but like it is allowed because this kanji is ta in names like Tanaka, but da in names like Yamada, so writing tada with this kanji twice is theoretically possible. Well, no, it's not theoretically possible. It is possible. They did it. And they also split the word for rice or for food into its two halves, which is eat and like against, opposite. Maybe I'm reading into it too much. There's so much going on in this song that I think reading into things is very easy. But the reason I'm inclined to read into it is that the next line talks about food poisoning, which again uses the eat radical that we saw earlier in the rice word. And then zanen, or regrettable, which is again broken into its parts visually. And we should note that the left radical, the hen, on zanen kind of looks like ta, our old friend from tada. This then links to and rhymes with the word kannen, which comes directly after. And at this point, you may be like, okay, but does this all mean anything? Well, not really. It's more just kind of about repeating these sort of kanji. Indeed, if you go to the official Vocaloid wiki, there's a translation of it that's done by Takman Y, who's a pretty prolific Japanese translator of Vocaloid from Japanese into English. And you can see, here it is. This is the translation of everything I've said so far. But there's a lot more to talk about in terms of how the words are being represented than what the words actually are. And I should note that if you go to the translation notes that Takman has left for this song, they note that, like, it's hard to understand. Like, when a translator's opening note is that you might be reading this being like, this is hard to understand as a non-native speaker, but actually it's hard for native speakers too. That's just not a promising sign for anybody. But I do believe we actually can access some of the meaning of the song through paying attention to what it's doing with kanji play. So let's just keep focusing on the kanji play. Now, the next line is Nanimo Fukakai, which is everything is incomprehensible. And this is actually not spoken by the disembodied head that we've seen in the video so far, which is surprising though, because there's kanji play going on here, as the final kanji of that word, kai, which is to understand, links directly to the first line of the next verse, which is Ato kutsuku kado, or also corners fix things, or also there are corners that stick, where we see the kaku radical, which means corner, which appeared in that understanding kanji standing alone. So it's back. Now, while this is kind of unrelated to food poisoning and rice fields, etc., it does, of course, put this idea forward of things sticking around, and this leads to the next line of aka ikabu erabu, or choose from a, I, u. This is parodying like a Japanese multiple choice test, where you'll choose, like, oftentimes the katakana are used for the multiple choice options, like we would use A, B, C. And then the video shows that these actually existed in the prior sentence about corners sticking to things by pulling everything away and just leaving kind of the radicals, as the radical on tsuku is the person radical, the human radical, which looks like E, and then there's kind of a new hidden in kado. It's a bit of a reach, but they're allowed to do that for art. But I do want to focus on the appearance of E here, as this person radical is one that's going to come up time and time and time again. So indeed, there's a little bit of a pun here. Choose from a, I, u. Well, you're supposed to choose E because that's the one that is actually radical, and the song is about hen. There is a correct choice in this multiple choice question. Confused to how this relates to the rice field stuff? Well, you're kind of supposed to be, because the next line is, I don't get it, but I get it, which switches between the wakaru we've seen earlier in fukakai and then the more normal character for wakaru, which again is intentional, as the first one is usually like to understand in an intellectual sense, and the second is more to get it. So like, I don't comprehend it, but I get it might be a fun translation for that. I can translate one line maybe successfully. I don't consider myself a translator, but my ego will let me have that one. But of course, that first kanji does link back to kado, it links back to what we saw earlier, and the second kanji actually then kind of highlights how that kanji and the more normal, more regularly seen kanji for wakaru both kind of have the same, like, sword part to them. It's very clear in the visuals for the video as they're kind of almost lined up. And then the song says that the left side, the hidarigawa, is hen, which is another pun, because it could mean that the left side is the radical of the kanji, which is, as we've seen oftentimes, or the left part is strange. And the video literally highlights the kado kanji we've seen as, the part that's there. So to sum all this up then, we've just had kind of a bunch of radical play throughout these two verses, with each verse focused around highlighting and playing with specific radicals. The next verse is a bit different though, as we get an entire section that starts with the comparatively coherent sentence of yomenai kotoba ga oshiosete kuru kuru, or words I can't read, like flood in, and then mienai koto kara kachisui torareru, or the value is sucked away by something I can't see. This leads into the line ittasai matakuru, or I said talent, it's coming again, I guess is the official translation. Our coherency has gone down quite quickly. But what's important about this line is it's created by, just as the song mentioned, sucking things away, sucking value away, by sucking parts of the original sentence away, as the radical for yomenai, to not be able to read, is left giving us the verb you, right, to say, and then the radical for osu, to push, which is the teihen that we talked about earlier, is left but then reimagined as the kanji sai, which is used to mean genius. And then kuru is kind of left as is. After this, the actual line value is sucked away also has everything except for its radicals sucked away, leaving us with the person radical twice, a mouth radical, and a ear radical, which lead to the next lyric of the song, which is I kuchi mimi. So again, person radical is reimagined as a katakana here, but we're seeing more and more of that person radical. I wonder if it's important. I think it is. Anyway, the song then goes to a line which we'll repeat a few times, which is gradually my head like flips over, becomes sakasama, becomes upside down. And this is obviously related to the themes of confusion and not understanding things that we've seen throughout the song so far. But I think actually this is more kanji play, even though the screen goes blank for this part. Because let's turn the kanji for head, here it is, turn it upside down, like they asked us to. You can fit Mimi and E and Kuchi in there. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm insane. Maybe I'm giving credit where credit's not due, but I think this is intentional. If you turn head upside down, we can find the kanji that we just discussed. Anyway, this moves into probably the most confusing part of the song, which is the bridge, because this repeats multiple times, but like the Japanese literally just doesn't make sense. As the first line of matto na onnen, hatto na honne is just kind of like matto is a mat, either M-A-T or M-A-T-T-E. The official translation here just says they don't know what it means, which is like, come on. If Japanese people are confused by this, I'm not going to solve it. And then again, like honne, or like your true feelings, hat is not a na adjective. So while Matt grudges in studying feelings is left as, the translation, even the translator's not really sure about that. But I would like to highlight this YouTube comment, which I think is very insightful, as it seems to propose that this is supposed to be that these are mistakes, like intentional mistakes, as the hatto is supposed to be hatto, or as in something that makes you feel shock or surprise, and the matto is supposed to be matto, or like proper. And so these are errors in Japanese, which I believe, because it does make sense when it links to the next line, which is "Staeteru hazu nano ni hen mini hen," or it's supposed to be conveyed. Something is supposed to be conveyed, but it's a bit strange. So the idea that this Japanese itself is a bit strange is providing us with an example of what the song is talking about. Now, I actually have to disagree with the wiki translation here, because the translation says, "I am surely conveying them," but it's weird. I think it's more translatable in English as "they're supposed to have been conveyed, but something's weird." As in, it's not the singer of the song who is supposed to be transmitting the language. I'll get into again why I think that is when we get to the end. But, Japanese loves to drop the actor in a sentence, so I could be wrong here. But I do agree with that YouTube comment that the idea here is to put in language that you experience strangely, so that your experience actually kind of manifests in the line about something is supposed to be conveyed, but it's not, however you translate it. Importantly, though, the kanji in that line need to be attended to as well, as staeteru has our person radical that we've talked about, but hazu, or should in this case, is written in kanji. And this is not normally how hazu is written. It's not illegal or anything, but hazu is generally written in hiragana, with the kanji used here not being on the Joyo kanji list. So, why write it in kanji? Well, as I've discussed in other videos, sometimes it's just cuz. You're allowed to do that. But I'd like to highlight at this point that we've seen a lot of kanji and a lot of radicals here in this song that have been specifically highlighted that have something to do with your face. We've seen mouths, we've seen ears, and here, the kanji for hazu does happen to have a gigantic tongue in it. That bottom part under the bamboo, that's a tongue. And we're talking about talking. We're talking about communicating here. And this is, I'm going to just say, I 100% think I'm reading into things here too much. But like, we could write the E radical there as well, I guess. Probably not. Anyway, this course then kind of repeats, but changes the noun that comes after these na adjectives that don't exist, using konsen, or confusion, and then bunmen, or writing contents. Here again, I think we do actually need to focus on what's being said, because confusion is linking to that theme of like things not making sense. And then bunmen, right? It's not saying just contents. It's specifically, the bun is writing. So it's talking about written contents. Again, Takman here goes with studying language, but the use of bun is important. We're playing with kanji here. We're playing with these meanings because there's something about written communication that is being highlighted in this song. And if we skip over that, I think we miss some of the real meaning behind it. Anyway, this leads to the line itari tarinai, which is again quite hard to translate, but we should highlight that they're using another word, tariru here, to be sufficient, in this case not sufficient, which has a body part kanji, in this case leg. We then get a slight break, which actually highlights, it's pretty fun, that konsen have the radicals for thread and water, although it says itomi, because the water radical, I guess, looks like the katakana mi. And this links to the fact that we've been imagining the person radical is the katakana i, right? And then it highlights that the final line, nanika hen, mini hen, has two human radicals in there as well, saying itoi, right? So person and person, person and person. And at this point, I hope you agree with me that this person radical is appearing far too much in this song to just be by chance. Anyway, all these courses and these asides end by mentioning that something is strange in some way again, stating the song title, and providing again that pun of the strange hen versus radical hen, with the visuals even, I think, very, very amusingly, creating a new radical for the kanji for radical, which replaces the person radical with the word mini, creating a literal mini hen. Anyway, this leads into our second set of verses. The first of these mirrors the first verse of the song and being built around a single radical. The same radical, in fact, one of the same ones, because we see mouth come up again, another face/body part radical. This time we actually start with just the kanji itself, as the opening line is kuchi ginmini bani. And so again, hard to get at the meaning, but mouth, carefully investigating, and then at a place. And mouth obviously appears in mouth. It appears in both of the kanji in the word gimmi, and then it kind of appears in ba up at the sun, if they added a line. But it also has the tsuchihen, the earth radical that we talked about at the beginning of this video, and we kind of saw it earlier in Itaru, although again, I think I'm over looking into things for that one. And this links us to the next chorus, because that radical serves as the center of that set of lines. Because we have tsuchi, akani, kani, kani, or crabs in the dirt and the grime. So we have the literal dirt, we have a kanji for grime, aka, which has the dirt radical. It's got a mouth in it too. This one I think is intentional. We just played with mouth, we see a mouth kanji. It's linking the lines, it's linking the choruses together, right? And then kani comes back, which is crabs. What do crabs have to do with anything? Well, look at that gorgeous kanji that looks exactly like a crab. Like when I see that, I think, oh yeah, that's a crab. That's what a crab looks like. Because crabs are a insect which gets it. That's the difficult wakaru kanji that we've seen earlier here used in the crab kanji. So it's a callback as well as an emphasis of the idea of understanding, right? And if we want to bring in the Japanese slang review thing, make this a mini slang review, aka, or a grime, is the Japanese net slang term for an account, as in something you might have online. Let's keep all of this in our heads, even if they're upside down, because we're going to come back to it. All right, then we go back to that line about value being sucked away again. That leaves us with the ikuchi mimi thing again. And then thankfully for me, the song just kind of repeats things we've already seen more or less, except there is one more bridge at the end that comes up with new lyrics. Here, the first line of dokokade, or somewhere, isn't that remarkable in and of itself, but again, we have the intentional use of kanji for a word that's normally written in hiragana, and that is doko. And again, yes, by using these kanji to write that word, we have another mouth radical and another person radical in the nani kanji that appears in the word doko. There's then kanji with eyes in this line about, being seen and being overlooked. And then tsutowaru and hen appear again, bringing back the person radical. And that's sort of everything that happens in the song. So, what's the point of all that? What's the meaning? Well, in part, the meaning's whatever you get from it. I'm definitely someone that subscribes to the idea that any interpretation of art is valid, even if it reveals that maybe you're not great at interpreting art. But, what's the intent of the creator? Well, they haven't specifically come out and said anything, so it's impossible to say what they were thinking for sure. And I do think that some parts of the song are not intentional, or just kind of fun. Yeah, I've interviewed a number of musicians across my career as a sociolinguist, and while many of them do talk about lots of intentionality behind things, I have had people say oh, I just did that because I ran out of syllables, or I was just trying to finish things, I didn't have much time. So maybe not everything I highlighted is actually important. They're just random statements of you throughout the song. And someone in the YouTube comments mentioned that in Korean, this actually looks like a little person, which is cute, would link to the person radical. But if that is intentional, if that's why used throughout the song, I just have to say that is an extremely impressive bilingual pun to come up with, and well done. To me, I'm just guessing it's because they thought you sounded good there. But there are things we can say for sure about this that I think are impossible, or at least extremely difficult, to just put away as happenstance. First, the song is unquestionably focused around the use of the person radical, what it calls E, quite a bit, highlighting it basically whenever it comes up, and clearly picking a lot of vocabulary that have this radical somewhere within it. The song also very, very much plays with radicals linked to the human body. Some of these, like leg and hand, etc., are in various parts of the body, but a lot of them relate to the face, the mouth, the eyes, the ears. There's lots of discussions of parts of our body that we use to communicate. The lyrics to the song are confusing and appear to be intentionally confusing at parts, even potentially including Japanese errors, which even Japanese people find hard to explain, such as the matona and hatona adjectives that aren't real adjectives, but are kind of close to actual adjectives. And what few lyrics do make a lot of sense clearly link to issues of incomprehension, not being able to understand things, the theft of value and content, and the sense of something being a little off, a little strange, a little changed from what is expected. So, I'm not going to pretend I cracked the song or anything like that. I agree with all these Japanese comments that the meaning of this is quite hard to kind of take away from. But my interpretation, for whatever it's worth, is that this song is trying to say something about a lack of humanity in digital communication. The idea that the human radical is being removed from language. Their body parts kind of floating around, things are odd, people are rushing in like an internet pylon, value is being sucked out as people steal content from one another. And again, the use of aka, to me, is very, very important because that's an account. In fact, there was a YouTube comment I thought was very interesting when I was looking at the song, trying to make some sense of it, where somebody said that they think the song is specifically about impure zombies. This time I've covered impression zombies, which are blue check people on Twitter that jump onto popular accounts and post things so that they get viewed, so that they get money. I don't necessarily know if I think this song is that specific in what's going on. Although people in the comments do note that the sunk value thing is there, which makes sense to me. And like, I do disagree with this comment, not to call it out or anything. We're just debating art. They could be right. Yumanai Kultaba is like written in Arabic alphabet, so they can't read it. I don't think that's what it is. I think it's Japanese language, which is flooding and is almost what like a human would say or what a person would say in normal communication, but just something is weird about it. So it's being written in Japanese. But the idea here that this person highlights, that the value being stolen is something that an impression zombie would do, it does land for me. Although I think it's more broad than that. I think it has something to do with internet communication, the way people talk online, the way bots talk online, everything that's happening online being just not normal, not how people are supposed to talk to each other, not how messaging and communication is supposed to happen, as the discourse sort of devolves into this weird thing where people rush and flood comment posts to steal their value. I'm not going to say I'm confident that I've hit the bullseye on this, but I do think at least I'm somewhere on the dartboard, if that makes sense. As there's definitely something about these body parts, this internet discourse, etc., that is lurking within all this kind of kanji play. So there you go, that's my attempt at explaining this song. I hope you found it interesting and insightful, and that you feel it maybe gave you a better understanding of what the song's about, even though I wouldn't say I cracked what the song's about. Indeed, the only thing I'm 100% confident in saying about this song is that it's a banger, and that I really hope that none of you ever ask me to unpack a song that is this complicated again. Anyway, post the really complicated song that you want me to unpack again in the comments.
You